doesn't look like there's any more attendees coming through. So welcome to today's MTD for income tax, hosted by myself. So first of all, I'll just go through the plan for the session. Free agent introduction, I'm just going to go through some USPs, some NatWest metal support, short product overview. So this is just a list of like our favorite features that we've launched in the past 12 months or so. And then I'm going to go through what's the original, what happened with MTD prior to December 2022, and then go through the changes. So because the changes actually, some of them are for the better, I think, and make your lives as accountants, bookkeepers a lot easier. After that, we'll then go into the quarterly submission overview. So I'll show you how that all works within FreeAgent, how you do it, how you process it, starting in the practice dashboard, moving all the way through. I will prerequisite this that this is in a sandbox environment. So when you see the numbers actually on screen, they're just what we're pulling through from HMRC, and they're just random numbers. They don't actually correlate to the information that's in the license, because it's just standardized information that HMRC is sending us. So don't worry if the information doesn't match up. And then we've got Q&A, we've got tools and support that we'll go through as well. So if I just go on to some general housekeeping, so today's session will be recorded. Also, after 1 o'clock-ish, it will also be available on demand as well. And to access the on demand for the webinar, you just use the same link that you used to log in to today, and that will take you to the on demand stuff. Yes, it is CPD'd, so you will be able to get your CPD certificate and points as well. For any questions, please do use the Q&A chat box and not the Q&A box, and not the attendee chat box. The reason for that is the Q&A, it's easy for us to monitor, and so that I've got Chris on that helping today. He'll be answering any non-technical questions, and then when we get to the Q&A, I'll then go through any that haven't been answered. Also, as well, we can then pull those questions out and we can compile them, put them on some nice PDF for you, and we can send those questions out as well as part of the follow-up email as an attachment. Please be polite and respectful. We're all here to learn, and all of that. You're all nice people, so I'm sure we won't have any issues, but we've had it in the past where some people start getting on at other people. What I will say is there's no such thing as a daft question, only my daft responses. So if you have got a question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A box. There is also a poll, and that is around our MTD consultations, and that's coming. We will set that up to run just after the live demo. So I'm your host, Ben Morley. I'm the implementation team manager at FreeAgent. I was also in practice for over 6 years in Yorkshire, which is where I live. And then I've worked for FreeAgent now for just over 6 years as well. So I've been in the industry quite a while. Lots of different avenues that I've been down. But yeah, I'm currently the team manager. So first off, for people that are not aware, the way that we've built our MTD solution, which I'll show you in the live demo, is that it's not a bolt-on, it's built into the license. So what that means is that anybody that has got a NatWest business bank account or Metal bank account, so Metal only do business bank accounts, they will qualify for the free license promotion offer, and the license will stay free for as long as they have the relationship with the bank. And what I mean by that is that they use the bank account and it's active, so there's transactions going through it. If, for instance, in 6 months' time, they then no longer are using that bank account, we're either NatWest or Metal or RBS or Ulster Bank Northern Ireland, if you've got anyone from Northern Ireland, what that means is then NatWest have a look and they say, right, okay, then they're not using it anymore. What happens then is it will then go on to a paid subscription at whatever rate you've got agreed with us. if it's run through a practice dashboard. If it's a standalone, they'll just then go on to the rate that is advertised on the website. So over the past 12 to 18 months, we've done quite a few new features, and the company made a strategic decision around the end of 2022 that we were really going to focus on practices and how we can help them and make FreeAgent more efficient for them. And there was lots of things that we spoke about, but the main strategy that we came up with was filling the floor, raising the ceiling. And what I mean by that is the floor is our current features. So what can we do to our current features that will make them more capable, make them more efficient, more beneficial to practices? And then raising the ceiling is, what haven't we got? What can we put in? What can we build? What can we do to, again, make it more efficient, make it more enjoyable, and get that better user experience for both practices and, as an end result, your clients as well. So the first one, bulk bank feed reconsent on the practice dashboard. So this is what we term internally as the magic button. And if any of you follow me on LinkedIn, as well as some of my other colleagues, we did shout out loud and proud about this because it is really a good feature. Within your practice dashboard, you go to connections, add-ons, manage bank accounts. You click on there, and it'll then just go and it will reconsent all of the bank feeds you have on your practice dashboard. Now, if for some reason it can't be done, there is a second list where it says, "Oh, client must update it." But because of the way we built the reconsent, you can just still go into that license and do that reconsent. The reconsent will also do expired bank feeds as well, up to 90 days expiry. So if you hit that 90 day and that bank account's at day 170, it will still reconsent it, and it will pull all of the transactions in from that last upload as well. For those that have used FreeAgent for a long time, one of the biggest bugbears from practices was the way that we handled depreciation, and we made changes to that. So now within when you say you've bought a capital asset, you can show the depreciation either on a straight line, reducing balance, or no depreciation at all, and you can then pick the percentage. For straight line, it's gone from 2 to 7 years up to 2 to 25 years, and you can also then either choose to do the depreciation monthly or annually. One thing that we used to get a lot of queries about over the time was, how can you change the end of year? Like, so the financial periods changed for whatever reason, and what really made us do this was the basis period reform. So within settings, you go to accounting dates, and once you're in there, you're able to then just press change of accounting date. You put in the new date, press the green action button, and it then just calculates it, and it just works. It just does everything. It does all the apportionment correctly. It knows according to which date and everything. So Sarah, where do we find the bulk bank feed reconsent? I've seen that come in. When I go onto the live demo, because I've got a live demo that's in my practice dashboard, I'll actually show it you where it is, because it's a bit hidden, and that. But yeah, I will come and show it. We also launched Amex and Metro bank feeds, which we were the first to have a full-on Metro open banking bank feed with, and we helped them build it, which was major. Took us a long time, but we got there. So they're the two. So the way that FreeAgent does bank feeds slightly differently to others is that we own and operate all the bank feeds ourselves. And what I mean by that is we don't use a third party. So that's great because we can manage them, we can look after them, we can nurture them. But it means that due to things outside of our control, like legislation, Brexit, and that sort of thing, it means that we can't have some of them which, because others use a third party, they're able to. For instance, because of where the bank has got its banking license registered. Variable split property ownership. I'll come on to that in more detail when we go into the live demo. But this basically is great for MTD, and I'll go into that in a bit. For some of you, you'll understand how we use Smart Capture for bills. So we originally launched Smart Capture and it was on out-of-pocket expenses. So that's our receipt capture technology where you can take a picture of it and load it in. We then added in being able to bulk upload, load in files from your computer, just drag and drop them in, or you open up the file explorer and you can literally grab all of those and put those in. What I will say is that the first 10 are free per month, and then as soon as you go over 10 in any given month, it then does become billable thereafter at £5. One thing we also had was that the pension system within FreeAgent wasn't brilliant. So within payroll, what we've done now is you can just tell it what percentage you want and what bits you want on the payroll for it to work out the percentage on, and it will then do all of those calculations for you, which historically you would have to work those out every month, whereas now you don't have to. You just tell it what percent, which bits you want it to do the pension on, and you're able to, it will do that for you. And then to round this one off, various reporting improvements. I'm not going to run through them all because there's a lot, but the main reason for all of these reporting improvements was the end goal of management accounts or management reports, which is coming this year. And so we've done lots of like UI interface changes. We've done the way that custom date ranges works, changes the way that the date filters work, and we've basically done that on all of the reports in line for the end goal being management accounts, management reports, however you want to phrase that, coming at a later date this year. So that's something really good to look out for, and it's been something that's been really requested a lot as well. So MTD, the elephant in the room. So MTD was launched or first thought about for MTD for VAT, and the reason they started with MTD for VAT is because, in all honesty, it's a low-hanging fruit. People are already used to doing the quarterly submissions for VAT. Yes, it was on a different system, but they were already used to doing that in some form or another, so it wasn't a realistic change of behaviour. Whereas MTD for ITSA, as it was previously known, was a massive change and a shake-up, and then December 22, 17th of December, they announced that they were pausing it. So prior to December 2022, it was announced that there would be 4 quarters. These were static, so they were hard dated. Everyone over 10,000 would eventually be in turnover. You had an end of period statement, and you then had a final declaration, and then each revenue stream on a different submission. So what that means is that every transaction is tagged to that revenue stream. And what that means is that it goes off to different points in HMRC. What then happened, December the 17th, in between that we had a change of government, and then we then had Rachel Reeves in the budget announced that MTD for income tax doing some changes. So one of the big ones, the static quarters, were now cumulative, and this is big. And this is big for one reason: is that under the static quarters, to be able to make changes, when we were testing it, we found it really difficult. Like it was a long, arduous process, and it wasn't smooth. It wasn't slick. Now that it's cumulative, it's so much easier. The reason being is when you submit any quarter, you also submit the previous quarters. So when you do Q3, you're doing 1 and 2 and 3. What that means is, in real terms for you, is that when you do a change in, say, Q1, you will then submit that change when you do Q2 or Q3. Okay, and when you do Q4, you're submitting all of the others. It means that you're not then having to try and figure out, oh, I've done these changes, I've got to lock those and put them into a different submission or anything like that. You don't have to. You just do them in the 4 quarters. The other big change was that the 10K was dropped. So it was going to be, for a while, it was just going to be up to 30, which wasn't very much market capitalization of the sole trade unincorporated market. And what they've done now is they've now going to introduce it up to 20,000 and above, and it's turnover. There's a lot of people I've spoken to over the past year or so, and they're shocked when it's turnover. It's not profit. Okay, so any income before any deductions, and it's all added together. Okay, so if someone has got a sole trader income, they've got a property income, it's those two added together. The end of period statement, where you would have to do a full set of accounts, that's no more, and you now do an annual summary. It's a lot slimmed down, and that's where you just do the adjustments. And again, when I go into FreeAgent and I do that demo for you, I'll be able to show you. And then you've got the final declaration. So the final declaration is the bit that is actually replacing the old self-assessment tax return. And the final declaration, you do one per person. The 4 quarters you have to do per revenue stream, and they have to be done in the software that the bookkeeping is done in. That is mandated from HMRC. There's no getting around that. So if you want to do the bookkeeping in, say, FreeAgent, but you want to do the final declaration in TaxCalc, you can do that. You just can't do the 4 quarters in TaxCalc. It has to be done. And as I said, it's still that every revenue stream on a different submission. And that last one, every revenue stream on a different submission, I'll come into when we do the live demo, because it actually helped form part of the way on how we've done the MTD solution and the reasons behind it. And I'll go into that as well. So I'm just going to go through some dates now on when it is everything's going to come in. So from April 2026, so April 6th of April next year, sole traders, landlords, 50k. Okay, and that is done on the 2024-25 tax return. HMRC have said that they're going to start from April this year, start communicating to anybody that is in that cohort. And it is any combined income. So stuff that is not included is any PAYE scheme, dividends, they're not included. Okay, not included in the calculation when you work out if someone is in or not. And they have to do digital record keeping and quarterly filing to HMRC. So the timeline, you've got April 26, sole traders, landlords, contractors, anybody that's got revenue stream that they get money through that is not through a limited company or PAYE scheme or dividends over 50,000 per annum. Then 6th of April 2027, it drops to 30,000 per annum. And then at some point before the end of this government, so it could be April 28, could be April 29, it drops again to 20,000 per annum combined. So we know by April 29, which is theoretically the end of this government, the threshold will be down to 20,000, which pretty much will cover the vast majority of people that are classed as a sole trader and landlord. I can see I've got a few questions coming in, and hopefully I will answer some of those when I go on to the live demo, because I'll be careful to make sure that I do. And speaking of the live demo, that's where we're at. So if you just give me a second, I'm just going to move my screens around so that I've got everything. And I'm now going to share my screen. Good. That one. In the attendee chat box, can I just get a couple of yes, whys, please, to let me know that my screen is coming through? I can see that people are speaking about my headphones, giving Princess Leia vibes. It's quite poignant, as I've got the Millennium Falcon big set behind me as well. Yep, thanks Kay, Sarah, Chris, everyone, thank you very much. I'm glad that my headphones are coming through and are causing so much entertainment for everybody. So before I go into the live demo, we had one question about the bulk bank feed reconsent. So what you've got is your practice name, top right here. You'd click on that that button there, and you just go to connections and add-ons. From here, you've got then bank connections, and you just click manage. And from here, if this was a proper dashboard, so this isn't a sandbox environment, so this is like sealed off environment where we're able to do testing, you would then have a list of your clients, and then there's a big green button that just says reconsent bank feeds. You click that, and you literally then see it go active, 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 and it drops down. What you've then also got is client must update. These are the ones that we can't do, but again, you can go into the license and do those for some of those banks as well. So I'm just going to go back into my clients. I'm going to go to my Lego props. And as I said, our MTD solution is built in. It's not a bolt-on or anything like that. And when we first built this, we really did think long and hard about how we can make this as simple and as straightforward as possible for everyone involved. So from here, so as I said, ignore the figures. Because this is just random data that we've put into this license. But where it will be housed is you've got taxes, it's still called, you go into self-assessment, and then from here you'll have the tax year, and you click on the tax year. And then we've got self-employment. So this is how it looks in FreeAgent. And we've tried to make it look as simple and as straightforward as possible. So you've got the 4 quarters, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you've got the income, expenses, and net profit. So the actual figures on the 4 quarters that get submitted to HMRC are the total income and total expenses, and then the profit. It's those 3 figures. That is it. Now, HMRC are quite open about this, that if you don't have the a quarter up to date because a life event has happened, and one of the examples they use is that your client, their partner, has become seriously very unwell, and that has taken their priority. So, and it's the quarter submission time. They just say, just press the button, just press the send update button. It doesn't matter. What they have said, though, is that if you are sending a nil, so 0 income, 0 expenses, 0 profit in that quarter, that is likely to trigger their system. Okay? So this is where actually bank feeds become really important, because bank feeds, with the AI automation that we have and the guest rules, guest explanations, that will help you process quite a lot of the bank feed information, which will then mean that you're not having to go in and do any bookkeeping at that point if you're not getting all that information, because the bank feed will do it, and you can then just click yes and submit. Okay. General rule of thumb in FreeAgent is if the text is blue, this shade of blue, you can click on it and it will then take you to that. So you can see just by clicking on these drop down arrows that actually it will show you how these total figures have been got to. So expenses is here, and total revenue is turnover is here. So this one, you will see that the way that we've built it is that because each transaction needs to be tagged and it goes to a different endpoint in HMRC, there was 2 ways that we could have done it. The first way we tried, and we were unsuccessful because we thought it was too complex, was that you just put it all in one license and you manage it all in one license. And we felt that that was actually a bit messy of a solution, and it also stopped us being able to do some really cool things as well. The second way, which is the way we went down it, is to have the sole trader license, where you would manage and operate the sole trader income and business. And the second was to build a specific landlord license. What that has meant we've been able to do is that within the landlord license, you then add every single property owner as a user. So you go to the name, settings, users, and you add all of the property owners in. You need to make sure you've got their first name, last name, and national insurance number and email. The reason for that is because we've built variable split ownership. That means that all of those property owners, doesn't matter whether it's a mum and dad, or it's a husband and wife, or it's a group of friends, or it's some colleagues that have got together to buy some properties, doesn't matter what those percentage ownership splits are, this submission process will do all of those, because for MTD submissions, it's done on the national insurance number. That's why I said when you set those property owners up, it's important that you put that national insurance number in. So yes, you do need separate licenses for sole trader and landlords, but with us doing that, it means that all of the property owners for that business can go on, and it doesn't matter whether you are the you represent them or not. The reason for that is because there's a big difference and a big shift in the way that self-assessment and MTD is done. Under self-assessment, the software developers like FreeAgent, we did the calculations. For MTD, there's a big shift. HMRC do those calculations. So all you do on this is just click send update. And you then click send update. And you can see here it's now processing. While it's processing, it blocks off you being able to do any adjustments. What I will say is this available to your clients? Yes, it will be, but only if they are a level 8 user. So in settings and users and their permission level, there would have to be a minimum of a level 8. Okay, you as a practice owner going through your practice dashboard, you will be able to do that. And you can see here that you can see the figures are starting to come through. I'll just give it a little bit more time. So I can see there's quite a few. So there's one question: can you use the same metal account for sole trader and landlord licenses? Yes, you can, but only one of them would qualify. Only one of them would qualify for the free license, and we are waiting for confirmation from Metal on when multiple bank accounts will be available for the same person, so that they could have one in set up for sole trader and one for landlord license. So we've got a question here: if you have a property jointly held and another property solely held, no, you put all the properties on the one license. You put all the property owners on the same license as well. With the owners, you have to make sure it's their first name, their full name, first name, full surname, their email address, and their national insurance number. The reason for that is MTD works on national insurance numbers. It doesn't work on the UTR. It works on the national insurance number. That is how we're able to do that submission. It will then collate, when we do all of these quarters, it collates all of that information together, and then it will then work out the different percentage splits, and then it will then do those separate submissions for, I don't know, Stormtrooper Steve and Princess Leia, as everyone keeps on saying that my headphones make me look like Princess Leia. So it will do those splits for you, and it will do all of those submissions with the one press of that send update. Now, there was a decision made from people within FreeAgent that when we do this, we were going to go full in. And what I mean by that is, when you talk to another software, you use what's called an API, and an API has what's called endpoints. Think of it like junctions on a motorway. And the decision was made that we were going to get all of them and do all of them. What this has meant is that we have a two-way API integration with HMRC. So that means when we send information to HMRC on the API highway, it's going one way, and then when we also press that send update button, this one, we're also pulling that information down. So if I click to the tax breakdown screen, you will see in here that actually we've then got property income, savings and gains, and dividends. And what this means is when you come to do it in FreeAgent and you press that send update button, and you can press that button every second, every minute, and every hour of every day, if you were so wanting to, it will give you an up-to-date view of what is happening with that person. The reason for that is because every other service that has to is sending that information to HMRC. And because we're hitting all the endpoints, it means that we can pull all of that information down, even if we don't support it within the license. So you can see here, even we've only done one submission, you've got property, savings and dividends income in here, and it's given us this total income. So we're able to gather all of that information together and put it all together in one place, which means you'll be in a lot better position to say, this is an estimate, and this box is live information, well, will be live information from HMRC. And eventually it will also have like cool information like, oh, you've turned over 85,000, you're there or thereabouts on VAT, you need to speak to your accountant about getting VAT registered, or it'll have CIS information in there as well. And that's what they're looking to do with that data. And they're quite open with that because it's a completely new system. They're getting lots more information, more real-time information as well. So because we've got the two-way integration with HMRC, when it comes to the final declaration, and I can't actually show you on this because at the minute we're just concentrating on building the legislative side of things, and we don't need those final adjustments available until at least 2027 at least, but you will be able to then make any adjustments. And what those adjustments are is anything that hasn't been submitted to HMRC, you'll be able to add those in as well. What that means is for MTD IT, we are a one-stop shop. You will be able to do the 4 quarters. You can do the annual summary. You can then do the final declaration, all within FreeAgent. And what I've tried to show here is that it's only a few clicks of a button. And there are some trick things that I can allude to sort of that we are hoping to try and get built, which will make that even more of a seamless operation for you. When it comes to the annual summary, this only needs to be submitted once at year end, but you can then put any adjustments, and you can turn the annual summary on or off just by clicking in edit details, and you can put in any of the balancing charge basis adjustments. You can then add in any allowances, so like capital allowances and stuff like that. You can then do any business changes in the last 12 months, any class 4, so if they're exempt or anything like that. And then you can update the individual information, so class 2 and all of that, and if they were so happen to any tax avoidance schemes. And then they've got losses, so you can do any brought forward losses. Say for instance this is the first year for MTD, you can bring in the losses, and you can do loss claims, and this is what it looks like within FreeAgent. And then, as I said, you've got the tax breakdown, and this is the bit that looks very similar. If people are familiar with the self-assessment area within FreeAgent, this tax breakdown looks very similar to the tax breakdown that's already in the software with the self-assessment area. And you can see here that we've just got all of it broken down. And as I said, because we've got that two-way chat with HMRC, when you press that green button, you're able to pull that information down, which means that you can give more up-to-date real-time information. What this means as well is if you've got someone that really struggles with a bit of cash flow, or real struggles with, like, it comes to January and they're like, oh no, I've got 15,000 to pay by the end of the month because I'm on payments on account. Well, actually you can be like, look, we can give you this information once a month, we can send you this information, or you can have this information on the tax timeline, and it will be like, look, this is how it's going, and your clients can then plan and all of that. Yes, it is still an estimate, and it will be an estimate up until everything is finalized. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the live demo. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a second. I've seen the Q&A inbox go absolutely mental. So what we're going to do now is we're running a poll, and it's just a simple one. Would you like to book an MTD consultation? The way to answer this poll is either by clicking on A, yes, or B, no. Once we've run the poll, it's then into the Q&A, and I've seen there's lots and lots of questions coming in. We're up to 32 questions. Hopefully we'll get through them all. So hopefully everyone saw that. If there's anything, hopefully the questions will come in, but I'm just going to let you, so we're at 27 January Rising. We've got 128 people on here. Please, if you don't want one, press no. If you do, please press yes. Okay, and I'm just going to leave that on screen for a bit because we're making some great time. In the follow-up, you will get an email follow-up with the link to the recording, and what we'll do as well is if there's any questions that we don't get through today, I'll put those, I'll type up some answers and all of that, so you've then got those answers available in that as well. I'm going to give it a couple more minute, a minute or so. So I can see the top question, and while we're waiting for that just to get up a bit, is can you submit rental for only one person if it is split ownership? So the way our split ownership works is that if you represent Stormtrooper Steve, but you don't represent Princess Leia, what you would do is you'd add Princess Leia as a user on that license. So first name Princess, last name Leia, email address princess.leia@imperialstarships.com. And I know she was part of the rebellion. And then you would put her national insurance number in. What you would then do on the permission level is you would speak to your client that you represent and say, what do you feel comfortable with? Is she your wife? Is she your partner? Is it a business partner? Do you want her to have, what view do you want her to have? Do you want her to be able to access it at all? If the answer is no, you set it to a level 0. If it's, yeah, they can have some access, I'm okay with that, you set it to whatever level they feel appropriate. What you then do is when you then click send update, it doesn't matter that you're not representative of Princess Leia, because what happens is we just send that information to HMRC for her split, that percentage split. What then happens is Princess Leia's accountant then does the same her side, and he presses send update in whatever software they're using, as long as it's got a two-way API chat. They will then be able to pull that information down from HMRC into this tax breakdown, and it will just view here like property, FHL, micro, boom. And that's how it operates with FreeAgent. You'll be able to send that information. So what you're going to have to do is potentially speak to a lot of your customers and your clients about that and get that set up. But it does mean that you're not then having to send those records over to Princess Leia's accountant or bookkeeper, because you're just sending it digitally instead via HMRC's cloud. They can then pull that information down. Doesn't matter whether you're using different software, accounts production software or bookkeeping software. If they've got that ability to pull that down, then they'll be able to do that. If you're not wanting to do that and you're wanting to basically do it so that you're then accounting for it, but you don't want to do their submissions, you don't put their national insurance number in, and it won't then be able to make that submission. Right, so I've just answered the question. So we're up to 73, so we've got 93 out of 128 answers. Again, what I do is at the end I'll skip back to the poll as well on the end. So what we've now got is some tools and support available. So we've got the MTD Practice Hub, we've got the client MTD client download, client flyer, email templates. There is the Practice Hub link, which will take you through to the Practice Hub website, which will be able to then let me just move back over here, which will then be able to then show you all that information for you. And now we're into the Q&A, and we've got 20 minutes left, and we've got a lot of questions to get through. So let me start at the beginning. Question number 3 from Renata. I'm sorry if I say anybody's names incorrectly. I do apologize beforehand. For existing fixed assets that are historical, can you reconfigure the depreciation style? Yes, you can. So what you do is you go into the capital asset register and you click on that, and you can then change it. If you have done any depreciation journals on that, you just need to delete those depreciation journals. Also, if you've put any type of lock on it, you will have to remove that lock first. Not a VAT lock, because that won't affect it, but any account lock either through submission of year-end FRS 105. Mine's gone blank then. And also any accounting lock through settings. You'll need to do that. When is FreeAgent bringing in the much needed full payroll solution, including hourly pay rates and pension submissions? So pension submissions we are actually looking into and talking with some pension providers around. So it's just a long process because pensions is such confidential, delicate information. There's a lot of due diligence that has to go through with that to make sure that everything's okay. Also, there are updates. We are continually updating the payroll system. The annual update for payroll, which is going to be adding in a couple of extra features, is looking at being around the end of April, beginning of May, so that's being updated. Alison, how will the quarterly submissions and free agent work with final declaration and potentially a different software? So if the how will the quarterly submissions free agent work with the final declaration? So the way it works is we send that information to HMRC. Once HMRC has got it, when you are then processing the final declaration, you just pull that information down. When you pull that information down, you're pulling all of the information that's been sent to HMRC for that person. So it's pensions, payroll, quarters, where all the different softwares are sending that information through to HMRC. You then pull that information down to the final declaration in whatever software. If you're doing it in FreeAgent, it will come down into FreeAgent. The advantage of doing it in FreeAgent is you're not then having to transpose that information into another software. And there are other softwares that have said they're not building a two-way integration, and you will have to manually enter that in. For those, you have to manually enter it in, so you have to extract that information out and then enter that information in. If they've got a two-way declaration, you just then press send update. Once everything is tickety-boo, tidied up, nice and buttoned up, ready for the year end, you send that information to HMRC's cloud. They then pull that down. So the final declaration is the part of the submission process that is replacing the self-assessment tax return. That is accumulation of all the revenue incomes combined. The 4-quarter submissions are only the information for that revenue stream. So if you do in the free agent, a sole trader, the sole trader license will have the 4 quarters in that, and that is only for that. If you've got a landlord license, it's only the information for that. The annual summary is any accounting adjustments, so capital allowances, any overlap relief or anything like that that you would do for that person, for that license. Okay, and you do that summary. The 4 quarters are also updates. And what I mean by updates is HMRC are quite open about this. And if any of you have been to any of their readiness events or are thinking about it, I do actually advise. I've been to a couple of them, and they're actually really good sources of information. You can do them as accurately as you possibly can, which if they're VAT registered, you need to anyway, because when you submit a VAT return, it has to be accurate anyway. So when you're doing that update, maybe they're not VAT registered and some things happen where you haven't got that information. HMRC's philosophy at the minute is you've got the rest of the year then to make those updates accurate and to get that information accurate. So currently the 4 quarters are updates. Whether that stays like that for forever is a completely different. So next question, what period is used to determine the qualifying year? It's the 24-25 tax return currently for the 50k. Sarah, from if a sole trader starts trading in April 26, would they only enter? Oh, someone's got an accounting question for me. Right, hold on. Let me get my accounting brain on. If a sole trader starts trading in April 26, would they only enter the MTD tax system tax year after assuming income over 50,000, or will they fall into MTD at the point that income hits 50k, like VAT registration? It's from the following tax year. So if they hit 50k in tax year 1, let's say 24-25, it will then be 26-27 that they would enter it if it was over 50k. If they hit the 50k in the 26-27, they would automatically be in the following one, the 27-28, because that threshold's dropped to 30k. And what HMRC have said is if anybody does go over that threshold limit, they will send communications to that person or that business to say, look, you're in MTD, this is the information we've got, you've turned over X amount, this is what is happening. Another question, does it only start as quarterly reporting once they have exceeded the threshold in the previous tax year? Yes, unless you voluntarily put them in. So if you've got someone on the pilot scheme that's above the threshold, or you think actually they're a bit of a slow learner but they're nice and simple, it'd be good to get them on, get them on. The more time you can give yourself, the better. And this in the MTD consultations, we talk about how you segment your clients and how you look at all of that. What I will say briefly is look at the thresholds, segment your clients to those thresholds, and then in those thresholds, look at the ones that are more difficult, easy, simple, and all of that as well. Can you filter the bank reconsent for groups of clients, i.e. a account manager? No, it's just one less. Will HMRC require adjustments for adding back depreciation and then disclosing investment allowances? So the investment allowances, AIA, that is done through the annual summary. Anything that has and depreciation you would do at the year end when you do the quarter four submission before you do the annual summary. Also, anything that isn't submitted to HMRC, say for instance they've got dividends from a PSC, you would add those in at the final declaration phase, just like you would with the current self-assessment tax return. So the final declaration, you pulls in all the information that's already with HMRC and they produce that. You then have the ability to then add in any adjustments that you have for anything that hasn't been submitted to HMRC. Another one, question from Susan. Do all clients have to move to a 5th of April year end, lots have 31st of March year end? Are the quarters strictly 6th of the month or to a quarter ending 5th? Are all of the quarters for everyone the same? So easiest part of that, yes, the quarters are all the same. No, you don't have to move to a 5th of April year end. They've got the choice of either 31st of March or the 5th of April. The 4 quarters will be moving to the 7th of the month once it goes live. For the pilot and currently testing, it's the 5th of the month, but they will be moving to the 7th in line with VAT returns and everything. Calendar quarters are coming, but HMRC haven't stipulated. So one from David, will be allowed calendar quarters. Yes, but they've not stipulated when that will be going live from HMRC's point of view. Alison, can you have different ownerships for each property? Yes. So let's say Stormtroopers Eve, Princess Leia, and myself, we've got a bunch of properties together. We're all on as users. What you do is you go into a property, the property settings, and you add that property into settings. In fact, if you just bear with me 1 second, I will just log into my property and my property account on FreeAgent, and I will show you how to do it. Here we go. Right. Because I think this is quite a powerful feature. So I'm just going to share my screen again. That one. Right. So hopefully that's coming up. So you go settings, property settings. Where are you? Property settings. There we go. Property settings. You can see here, I've already got a couple set up. So I've got Elm Street, effective time period 6th of April 21 onwards. We've got me owning 70%, Jimi Hendrix 20%, Taylor Hawkins 10%. And then 890 Fifth Avenue. If anyone can guess what building that is from a film, bonus points to you if you can answer that in the chat box. We've got Jimmy that's got 80, Taylor's got 10, Ben's got 10. Yeah, and you do that for each one. You just click add new ownership agreement. You then select from the drop down, like Wayne Manor. You then put add another owner, and you can put as many owners in different as you in, and you put that different percentage in. What that enables you to do as is set up here, it means that when you come to do those submissions, each person's split is automatically calculated for you, which is massive because it means you're not then having to go through and dig all of that. So what happens with sole trader with more than one income, not property though? So once they are in MTD, they are in for 3 years. Okay, so in 3 years' time, it'll be down to about 20k anyway from the start. that means all of their income is in. So if they've got a sole trader, a landlord, and then they do a side hustle business that only turns over 10k, you would still have to do quarterly submissions for that. Okay. If they've got property, they've got a sole trader, you still have to do a submission for that as well. Okay, so once they're in MTD, they have to do submissions for everything that is a revenue. If they're just selling their belongings out the house and like they've just had a kid and they're selling the pram and all of the baby stuff because they no longer need it, that's not classed as an income stream. Okay. If it's classed as an income stream and it goes on their tax return, once they are MTD and in MTD, they will need to do that through a quarterly submission, unless it's dividends, which can be done on the final declaration. Do you do two separate submissions for property and sole trader, or do they link together and get submitted in one go, or you have to submit both separately? With the way we've got it set up with a separate sole trader license and a separate landlord license, you would have to do those submissions separately through those. Okay, because we've then got that two-way integration highway with HMRC, when you do that submission, both licenses will then both pull that bits of information back into the other license to show that on the tax breakdown. So on the side trader one, it will show micro property. On the property one, it will also show the sole trader income. And then the estimates, in theory, should be the same. But if you press one and then an hour later press the other, there might have been some additional information sent to HMRC as well. Okay. So that was Ricky's question. Mark, I have registered my free agent client for MTD for 25-26. Do I have to change a setting in free agent so that this is recognised? So first of all, what you would have to do, Mark, is make sure you're on the pilot scheme if you're wanting to do that. I can't show you on my sandbox because I've already pressed it, but in fact, just give me a second. I'm going to try and get it up so that I can show you. See if there's one that I can just show on here. No. Basically, what we have is that a big box that when you go onto Practice Dashboard, you click on the client's name and there's a big box that says this person is registered for MTD, click here, and that will switch them over from self-assessment onto MTD. It is pretty much an identical process that you did when you moved someone from the old style VAT to MTD VAT. Fozia, can client get read-only access to the tax liability estimate view without being on level 8? Yes, it'll be on their tax timeline. So on the tax timeline, it will show them the current balance that is owed once you've pressed that button for the first time. What you can also do is show them without the value as well. And as remember, until the final declaration is done, it is an estimate because there's other things that will be submitted to HMRC that is outside of that what we can see, and other things like payroll, for instance, won't be finalised. Ian, UK dividends will only be that from listed companies. So depending on the size of the company, and I can't remember what that threshold is, but basically PLCs have to submit that dividend revenue, dividend income to HMRC. If it's a PSC, you will just add that in at the final declaration. So let's say they've got a sole trader and they're also a partner in a co-owner of a limited company, but it's a micro PSC, and it's just them and a couple of mates. What would then happen is you would get that dividend information, and when it comes to the final declaration, you just manually enter that in there, similar to how you would with the self-assessment tax return. Sarah, where are they getting the dividend information from when companies are not yet reporting under MTD? I've just answered that. It's the same process. You gather that information for anything that is not submitted. So a question from David. If a person owned half a property with one person and half a different property with a different person, would HMRC accept multiple MD submissions from different accountants? The implication of what you have said is that the answer is yes. Yeah, they would. Also, what you would do is you would just have that user set up with their national insurance number, and you just submit that information to HMRC. The other accountant would then be sorting all that stuff out for the final declaration and all of that. You're just doing that percentage split. Sarah, can you edit the estimated tax screen to include own estimates of additional income not reported to HMRC at the time? We do not have that built, and I don't know what the process for that will be at the minute, because at the minute we are solely concentrating on getting the legislative things correct and making sure that that works, because that's the important thing at this time. All of the adjustments, in theory, the first adjustments that are going to be submitted is for the people on the 25-26 pilot scheme. They're going to be the first group that are going to need it. So we're going to start work on that, but we're just making sure we get all of the legislative stuff sorted, because that has to be correct. We're making sure everything works. How are capital gains taxes, particularly for landlords, addressed in MTD? So within APIs, they're called endpoints. And HMRC have a particular endpoint called Get Financials that is covering the capital gains tax information. They currently don't have that built, but capital gains tax is a separate submission outside of MTD, and that has its own strict timelines and submission protocols that have to be submitted for that. Once a CGT capital gains tax submission is made, that information is with HMRC. When you press that send update button, you'll just be pulling that information down anyway, and it will just form part of that under that. David, on a similar tack, it seems that the information we file under MTD under one license for self-employment will be added together with property under another license and reported back to us by HMRC. Yeah, correct. Just lost where I was up to. There's lots and lots of questions here. So, Anne, is it possible to trial MTD for the year 25-26? Yes. All you need to do is get in touch with your account manager at FreeAgent, and they will be able to add you onto the list for the pilot scheme. We will then talk you through how to do it. You also need to register for the pilot scheme. You also need to find someone that is able to do the process through the pilot scheme, because there are some restrictions. Is the turnover based on the 12 months during the tax period or the rolling 12-month period? It is the the turnover that is submitted on the tax return for the 24-25 one. One from Joanna, and we've got 2 minutes left, so I'll do a couple more. How can we share data with the client? How can we categorize it? And can clients also add their own information from their side, for example, through an application? So with FreeAgent, you can set your clients up on the FreeAgent mobile app. They can then do that. They can set the bank feed up, and through the mobile app, that is the easiest way to do it. For one reason, you don't have to do the online banking credentials because of the use of APIs. They then can process the information. What you've also then got within our banking is you've got guest rules, guest explanations, AI that can also then help process those banking transactions. They can also be doing their sales invoices, the purchase invoices, big bookkeeping, and do all of that. And then all of that information within FreeAgent is then produced, helping you lower your involvement in the production. Claire, have HMRC confirmed whether we'll be able to access SA302s from these submissions? The clients I use FreeAgent to submit tax return don't have these available via my agent ID. There has been no confirmation on that as of yet, and I'm not sure whether you mean SA302 submissions through the quarters or stuff like that. So I'm not sure where you're going with that one, Claire. Chris, can we just put a follow up with Claire around that, and we'll have a discussion about that, Claire. Fozia, if a client has multiple properties, multiple bank accounts, and multiple partners, should we connect all the banks and then deal with transactions and allocate respective properties and be able to submit their quarterly returns? But what about their other partners? How is this shared without doing a duplication of bank connections? So, let's say they've got property, business, 10 properties, 10 owners, 10 bank accounts. One of you decides out of that 10, who's going to run the bookkeeping? Let's say it's me. I would then say, because there's 10 bank accounts for those 10 properties and I've got ownership in all of them 10, we need all those 10 bank connections, bank feeds into one license. Then we put all 10 people in as owners, and we set up all the different variable property splits like I showed you earlier. When you then come to do the 4 quarters submission, it will do all of that 10 property split. Within FreeAgent as well, within the property license type, landlord license type, you have to put a transaction to a property. There's no way around it. So if you've got 10 properties and your transaction, say for electricity, is split 10 ways, you do that 10 ways. Okay, you put that against each one. We are looking at doing automatic splitting rules. So for instance, like maintenance, like you've got a maintenance company, you say, right, okay, that maintenance company, it's equal split across all 10. And you can do, we're looking at seeing if you can do stuff like that, trick stuff, but you tag each transaction to each property, and that will then create a P&L for that property, and then you'll be able to do all of those submissions. Okay, I'm conscious of the time we've gone over, so I'm just going to make this last one. Any help with how we determine a fair fixed monthly fee that covers the cost of MTD compliance and provides a reasonable profit margin? Martin, that is what part of the discussion you could have in an MTD consultation. I hope you press yes on the poll. So yeah. Or Martin, I think I recognise your name. I think I might have spoken to you previously. Have a chat with your account manager and stuff like that. This is definitely the next one. Nikki, you said that you can still use tax calc. How will this work? It'll just use, so the way tax calc work is they will just pull that information down from HMRC. Okay, anything that's submitted to HMRC, they'll be able to pull down. And that is all we have time for today. We've run over a bit. We've still got, so we got to question 38, and there's still an awful lot of questions left to be answered. And I hope I've given, there's some thank yous in there, so thank you very much. I would like to say thank you to Chris for helping man the chat box and the Q&A. I'd also like to say thank you to Mark, who has been our technical presario, orchestrating everything. So thank you very much, Mark. What we will do is all the questions that didn't get answered, we're able to pull them out as a report. I will then, me and some of my team will just answer all of those questions, and I'll liaise with Mark to get that added on in the follow-up email, so you have all of those questions that you'll be able to have a look through at your leisure. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much for your time. We had a great attendance, over 100 people, and thank you for all your engagement. Thanks for the 77 questions that we had. So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for your time. I'm going to end the event there. Thank you.